previous years, we had a change of venue. We went to the Civic Center down to the Veterans Memorial at History Park. And that was necessary to maintain safe distances and wear face covering. Do everything we could to protect each other. And we altered our school system of celebrating and honoring our veterans. We had a veterans training. The silver lining from all that was that our first school adopted our just changed the environment and developed a few new creative ways to express gratitude to our veterans. Tribute train. By the way, that practice continued today. That train left the station about 8:30 this morning. It consisted of a convoy of veterans and their vehicles passed through each of our school campuses so that the students could openly display their appreciation in their service to our veterans. I had a great opportunity to sit and watch that tribute train go by and express my appreciation to those veterans. That train must have been at least a mile long. So thank you for doing that, and it's great for our students to honor our veterans in that way. Today I want to say the second is to dedication of the change of venue from our Civic Center last year to History Park was wholly appropriate for Veterans Day. And that was made in part because of the efforts of our garden club, Shady Grove Garden Club, and their vision, the effort for making the memorial walk, flagpole, and the veterans markers a reality. So thank you for that. And I would remind any of you that care to see, we have a new plaque there at the Veterans Memorial there. There is a tribute to the Arnold, Old Forest Park, the Old Forest work that we did here at the Arnold Center. So go and take a look at that new plaque honoring our veterans there. Well, thank you, Sam, for those tireless efforts. But today, we're blessed to have the opportunity to gather again here at the South Jackson Civic Center to recognize and commemorate the significance of November the 11th. As Veterans Day, a day that our nation has set aside to honor the service of all military veterans, both past, present, living, and deceased. This American is extremely grateful for their service and because of their willingness to serve and their sacrifice that we can enjoy the freedoms and the blessings that we have today. Americans must never forget those sacrifices. So to those in uniform today and to those who have served in the past, we honor you today and every day. And to our veterans, I want to personally thank you on behalf of a grateful Tullahoma and a grateful nation. But as John Fitzgerald Kennedy said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the greatest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. And, as Ronald Reagan once observed, some people have an entire lifetime, an entire lifetime, and they wonder if they ever made a difference in the world. But veterans don't have to worry about that problem. They know that they've made a positive difference in the world. So I hope all of you have an excellent day. And at this time, I'd ask the Scouts to post the colors.
Please bow your heads in prayer. Our Father and our God, as we turn to you in this hour, make us ever mindful of the men and women who have served and continue to serve this great nation through our armed forces. For the unsung heroes of our nation who have risked their lives and even given their lives in defense of the country and for the cause of freedom. We praise you for their courage, their unwavering commitment, and their service. For our veterans who are gathered here today, our veterans who are lonely, who are displaced throughout our world today, for those in a VA, in a hospital, a nursing home, tend them as you have promised, assuring them that you are their good shepherd and their great physician, and that you will never leave them nor forsake them. For those who continue to serve, we give thanks to you. Bless the men and women who serve within our borders and who are scattered throughout the world. For those, O Lord, who have lost a loved one, a father, a son, a daughter, a mother, that you bind up the brokenhearted with your comfort, with your peace, with your strength. And give to each one of us gathered here today renewed strength that we may serve you and serve our neighbor as never before. For we ask it in Jesus' name, our Lord. Amen.
Amen. May you see.
Now today we gather to honor all of our veterans. These noble men and women offer personal sacrifice and service to guarantee our continuing freedom. Their dedication, devotion, and commitment to our American ideals have blessed each of us. May this event today honor these veterans, and also may we honor their families. Remember, we are the home of the free because of these brave. Thank you.
Yeah. Here's wishing you a happy voyage home. The homes of mountain blue, in the air on land and sea. First to fight for right and freedom, then to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. I'd worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank the Lord above for living here today, 'cause this flag still stands for freedom, and you can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American.
Thank you, Lloyd. That was wonderful. So it's my So I want to tell you a little bit about him. So after growing up on a farm outside of Bell Buckle and completing the ROTC program at MTSU, he spent 38 years in the Army, and 10.5 of those years being in the Pentagon. He loved being a helicopter pilot, but his last assignment was military deputy to the Army Acquisition Executive and Acquisition Advisor to the Chief of Staff of the Army and Secretary of the Army. So after retiring, he did find out there was life after the Army, but he went to work for the Boeing company, from which he's just recently retired there as well. And now he works on old cars and tractors. So I ask you to help me welcome my favorite soldier to the podium, Lieutenant General Retired Bill Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And Catherine, thanks for that kind introduction. It's not always that your sister-in-law has such nice comments to say about you and my wife, her sister. So thank you. Well, it's great to be back in Tullahoma on this important day that honors selfless service and what our veterans have meant to our nation to defend freedom. It's truly my honor to be here with you today. Up front, I want to recognize just a few folks, and I'll miss some, so my apologies, but Mayor Noahs, thank you. It was such a pleasure to meet you this morning, and thanks for your great leadership. Tullahoma aldermen that are here, thank you for your great service to this extraordinary community as well. The flags, the Boy Scout Troop 402, you were just awesome this morning, thank you. And gosh, the Tullahoma High School Brass Ensemble, you really brought tears to my eyes. I've never been that close to the national anthem, but you did it perfect. And for our veterans who led the Pledge of Allegiance, just extraordinary. Thank you for the reminder of what this meant, the flag means to our nation. Reverend Nutter, thank you also for your invocation. Gosh, and Lloyd Smith. There's this thing called American Idol. There's my American Idol. That was incredible. You never know when you're going to walk around and find veterans wherever, in a restaurant or wherever you might be at a football game or wherever. Just around the community. I just met R.J. Hayes this morning. Never met him before in my whole life. 2 tours in Vietnam. Did a lot of things beyond that and does a lot of work here that you all know. But I was so proud to meet you this morning and your wife of 56 years. I'd like to thank all of those who volunteered to give of yourself very freely. I want to thank you for what you do for veterans and their families. At the end of the day, there are no greater patriots than right here in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and this extraordinary community. For all those who planned this event, it never is easy to do something like this, looking at all the events that are occurring today, but thank you for what you have done to make this event an extraordinary event. How many of you are veterans? Who are? Thanks for the planners. I know most of you are probably veterans that are here, many, and families. Thank you for being here as a reminder of selfless service. Our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, our Coast Guardsmen, thank you for including that in there as well. They hold a special place in all of our hearts. You being here validates that statement as being absolutely true. I'm going to talk a little bit about selfless service. The Army has 7 values. I'm not going to go through all of them. I know them by heart, and many of you do as well. They're often difficult to distinguish which one is better than others. But what rises to the top for me is selfless service. It is most powerful and most influential, doing something greater than self. It is part of what makes our armed forces so great on this earth. Each of you and the citizens of this great city continue to exhibit selfless service through your actions and your many accomplishments for veterans and their families. You truly do make a difference, which was also mentioned this morning by our mayor. This is true for family members as well. We thank you and we respect you for your support for our veterans and your many sacrifices. You, at the end of the day, are the strength of our warfighters and our veterans. I want to share one of my favorite quotes from President Reagan. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed down for them to do the same. And at the end of the day, I thank God that men and women are willing to step forward and say, send me, I will serve. That's selfless service. How many of you have been to Arlington Cemetery? Pretty extraordinary place, isn't it? At my 10.5 years in the Pentagon that Catherine mentioned, went there several times. it touches your heart when you go there, especially to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers, a most memorable place. You know, today marks the 100th anniversary of the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, and it was an interesting beginning. The first service member to be buried at Arlington was in 1864 during the Civil War, and many of you may know the history of how that occurred. On March the 4th, 1921, Congress, based on legislation by U.S. Representative Hamilton Fish III, a World War I veteran, approved a resolution providing for the burial of an unidentified American soldier from the American Expeditionary Forces led by General Pershing. This action followed the custom adopted by France and Britain, who had done so a year earlier. The site chosen was the Arlington National Cemetery at the Amphitheater. On Memorial Day, 1921, an unknown soldier, World War I soldier, was exhumed from each of the 4 cemeteries in France. The remains were placed in identical caskets and assembled in France. I don't know if many of you have been to visit cemeteries around the world. I have been to the Philippines, I've been to Europe. My wife and I went to a cemetery in France where we stood by the point where Audie Murphy actually made his stand against one of Hitler's most aggressive battalions, and he would later be awarded the Medal of Honor. They so much love and honor American service members. I think you would be proud as you visit those cemeteries and what service and freedom means to those people. So on October the 24th, 1921, Army Sergeant Edward Younger, a World War I veteran, twice wounded in combat and highly decorated for valor, was chosen to select the unknown soldier from those 4. He was directed to place pink and white roses on the casket to be honored. Younger was left alone to execute his task. He stated, and I quote, "I walked around the coffins 3 times, then suddenly stopped. What caused me to stop? I don't know. It was as though something had pulled me to this soldier's casket." He explains that he was drawn to it in a most powerful way. So he took out the roses, he put them on the coffin, then he stood at attention and saluted the soldier's casket. Younger was serving in Germany at the time. If you want to know where he is today, he's buried in Section 18 at Arlington National Cemetery. The remaining 3 soldiers were again interned at a cemetery in the Argonne Cemetery, in France. The unknown soldier to be honored traveled to Paris, then on to a port in the city of Le Havre, and then placed on board the USS Olympia on October the 25th, 1921. The unknown soldier arrived on 9 November at the Washington Navy Yard. The casket was taken to the U.S. Capitol and placed in the rotunda. As the casket lay in state, over 90,000 people came to pay their respects, to include General Pershing, commander of the Army Expeditionary Forces, President Warren Harding, and many other dignitaries and past presidents. The New York Times described the burial at Arlington as unlike the burial of Presidents Lincoln, Garfield, and McKinley. And I quote, "There were tears of sorrow then, there were tears of sorrow today, but most of those who shed them were carried away by the emotion of the symbolism of patriotism, which this unknown American embodied." So at 8:30 a.m. on the 11th of November, 1921, almost exactly 100 years ago, the ceremony began. 8 service members, soldiers and sailors, carried the casket down the Capitol steps and proceeded to Arlington Cemetery. A group of Medal of Honor recipients and Gold Star wives and mothers joined behind the caissons that passed the Supreme Court, the White House, then on to Arlington. It was a 7-mile journey. There were many dignitaries, to include the Chief Justice, William Taft, former President Woodrow Wilson, international delegations from our allies from France, Italy, England, Belgium, Japan, and others. As the Times reported, these were all great men, but none of them too great to bow in homage to our nation's hero. The funeral procession arrived at about 11:40 a.m. at Arlington. It was greeted by a crowd of over 100,000 people. Now, you've been to Arlington. Can you imagine 100,000 people waiting for this ceremony to occur? President Harding was the main speaker, and I just want to share some of his words with you. And I quote, "The soldier about to be buried in a tomb might have come from any of one of millions of American homes. We do not know the eminence of his birth, but we know the glory of his death. He died for his country, and greater devotion hath no man than this. This American soldier went forth to battle with no hatred for any people of the world, but hating war and hating the purpose of every war for conquest. Today's ceremony proclaims that this hero, unknown, is not unhonored." He then spoke to the Gold Star wives and mothers that were there, talking about their service, their sacrifice, and what they have done to give their most precious resource in the world to their country. The tomb itself, as you've been there, is very austere. The first email I opened this morning was from my dear friends, I haven't seen him in a couple of years, named John Williamson. As I opened it, it was a picture of the actual tomb. And I shot back to him and I said, "This is most appropriate because I'm going to use this." On the plaza face toward the amphitheater are these words, "Here rest in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." So, who guards the tomb of the unknown soldiers? Well, Al Hinneman is here. Al and I chatted this morning. I've never met Al until this morning. We were just talking about his service. He was a lieutenant when he was in command of the Old Guard, the officer in charge of them, and actually would inspect them and as they walked out to do their guard duty. So I'm going to share some comments, but if you want to know more, Al is there. By the way, Al is a 101st Vietnam veteran as well. Thank you for your service. Originally, a civilian watchman was responsible for security, a civilian, in the beginning. Then in 1926, a military guard from the Washington Provincial Brigade, soon to be the Military District of Washington, established for daylight only. In 1948, the 3rd U.S. Infantry that Al was a part of, the Old Guard, assumed the post following the unit's reactivation in the national capital. The 3rd Infantry, the Old Guard, is the oldest active duty unit in the Army. They began service in 1784. And a soldier who wants to be a part of this honor guard, serving as a sentinel, must possess exemplary qualities to include American citizenship, a spotless record, and impeccable military bearing. While on duty, the sentinel crosses a 63-foot rubber surface walkway in exactly 21 steps. He then faces the tomb for another 21 seconds. Then he will turn, and then another 63 feet, 21 seconds to the next station. The 21 is symbolic of what we do in honor of our nation's greatest heroes in ceremonies. As a gesture against intrusion on the post, the sentinel always bears his weapon away from the tomb. Only upon exceptional circumstances may the guard speak or offer his silence measured toward duty. All of you have seen that, as you've seen them march back and forth if you've been to the ceremony. He will issue a warning if anyone attempts to enter the restricted area around the tomb, but will first halt and bring his arms to port arms. The guard wears an Army dress blue uniform, my favorite uniform. If you've seen all the Westerns, the Indian Wars and so forth, that's the uniform that they wear. And it's reminiscent of those times. Tomb guards are privileged to wear the tomb identification badge. The word honor guard are engraved on the base of the badge. If they are there for 9 months or longer, they get to wear it permanently as a part of the uniform. They are charged throughout their life to honor our nation and honor the flag. There's a brass plaque that goes in the basement of the amphitheater where they actually prepare with their name being on it. If they dishonor themselves or the nation, then their names are pulled off that plaque. It is a high honor to serve as an Old Guard member. So I want to take a few moments to share with you a story that occurred to me during my last tour in the Pentagon in 2013. And I heard this story. It was about a hero who was going to be awarded the Medal of Honor. His name is Chaplain Imal Kapan, a native of Kansas. He served in the 1st Cav Division during the Korean War. Kapan was ordained a Catholic priest in 1940, and in 1944 he began serving as an Army chaplain. During the Battle of Unsan in Korea, as Chinese Communist forces encircled his battalion, Kapan moved fearlessly from foxhole to foxhole under direct enemy fire in order to provide comfort and reassurance to the outnumbered soldiers. He repeatedly exposed himself to enemy fire to recover wounded men and drag them to safety. When he couldn't drag them, he dug shallow trenches to shield them from the enemy fire. As Chinese forces closed in, the commanding officer ordered his force to withdraw immediately in order to escape. Chaplain Kapan chose to stay and tend to the wounded and those that could not evacuate. He was taken prisoner of war on November 2nd, 1950. When he was being led away as a captive, he saw a wounded American unable to walk, lying in a ditch defenseless. An enemy soldier was standing over him, his rifle aimed at his head, ready to shoot. Father Kapan pushed the Chinese soldier away, and then the enemy soldier watched, horrified and stunned, really. Father Kapan carried that wounded American away and continued to do so for the next 4 miles on their death march. When other prisoners stumbled, he picked them up. When they wanted to quit, knowing that stragglers would be shot, he begged them to keep walking. Once inside the dismal prison camps, Kapan risked his life by sneaking around the camp, foraging for food, caring for the sick, and encouraging his fellow soldiers to sustain their faith and their humanity. On at least one occasion, he was brutally punished for his disobedience, being forced to sit outside in sub-zero weather without clothing. When the Chinese began a re-education program, Kapan politely rejected every theory, defied his captors, and on Easter Day in 1951, he conducted a sunrise service. When Kapan began to suffer from his physical toll of his captivity, the Chinese transferred him to a filthy, unheated hospital where he died alone. As he was being carried to the hospital, he asked God's forgiveness for his captors. Chaplain Kapan died in captivity on May 23rd, 1951. In 1993, Kapan was named a Servant of God by the Vatican. On the 13th of April, 2013, when I was in the Pentagon, I learned that Chaplain Kapan was to be awarded the Medal of Honor. He is the only Army chaplain to receive such honor. On May 2nd of this year, Chaplain Kapan's remains were identified in Hawaii on the 29th of September. He was laid to rest in Wichita, Kansas, 29th of September of this year. Chaplain Kapan is now being considered by the Catholic Church for sainthood, an Army soldier. 2 quotes I'd like to share with you. First, from the book of Isaiah 6:8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." So what do we owe our veterans? We can never do enough for our veterans. This community does so much for them, and we are thankful for what you do. But I think President Lincoln, in his second inaugural address, sort of summed it up for all Americans as he charged them to, and I quote, "to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow, and for his orphan." In closing, once again, thanks to all of you for being here today, and I am honored to be here with each and every one of you as we honor our nation's heroes, our veterans, and their families. And folks have many ways of honoring veterans. One of them I know is Brigadier General retired J.B. Burton. He's the son of Peggy Burton. I don't know if Peggy is here today, but J.B. honors his soldiers who died in combat. On the date of their death, he will post their story on Facebook on the day that they gave the last full measure of devotion to our nation. I know that all of you selflessly and with great honor give of yourself, your times, your resources to our veterans. and their families. May God continue to bless this great city, our nation, our armed forces, our veterans who have answered the call by saying, "Send me." Thank you.
veteran. Sometimes in my life, I question my worthiness in the lack of service that I felt like that I offered during the time that I was involved. I'm obviously alive or I wouldn't be here. I have no physical ailments due to being a veteran. There's the mental issue, but we all know that probably doesn't have anything to do with service. I felt like I was not quite worthy of being a veteran until my dear wife who has led me down many wonderful paths in our married life, said, yes, you are. You were there when it was time to serve. You just didn't get the call. People who did the same thing I did in service did get the call. Some of them died, some of them were wounded. Our wounded warriors are to be cared for above all from each and every one of us in any way we can. I have a couple of things to say and a couple of things to read, and after that I will present to you, the faithful soldier, a piece that my grandfather, Odie Lee Tidwell, did at a small Baptist church in a valley in Dixon County. He was a veteran. He was a veteran of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, with many people who fought that war to develop the bomb that stopped the war. Many of them probably died in that service and were injured. In my mind, they too are veterans. A veteran of life. I am a veteran of life, allowing me to be vetted in many disciplines. Veteran of an above average public education, a hobbled veteran of many sports teams, veteran of several self-serving religious dogmas, and a couple that actually understand the mission. Veteran of many non-profit organization involvements, and a veteran of several business involvements that turned out non-profit. A veteran creative where money does not equal success. A veteran of interaction with two wonderful families and a long marriage. Enough said. I am a veteran of many things, and proudly, I am a veteran of the United States of America Army National Guard. That puts me in a group of selfless individuals who have served our country, sacrificing life and limb to secure the freedom that allows us to be veterans of whatever we choose in a free America. I am proud to be a veteran and thank my brothers and sisters who have served. Happy Veterans Day to all. As chaplain of Post 43, American Legion in Tullahoma throughout the years, it has been my honor to read the names of our veterans who have passed since last Veterans Day. We usually do this at our post home, but last year and this year we are not having a function there. Thank you, Winston Brooks, for allowing us to share this with our veterans who are still here. Ronald Joseph Early, Sr., Jerry Marvel, Sean Teal, George Cox, Robert Taylor, John Larkin, Carl Hasty, Ronnie Falk, Paul Furman, Robert Kirchmeyer, Mark Arrega, Randall Williams, John Smith, Aaron Bennett, Thomas Crosland, Denver Cole Jr., William Dowland, David Vaughn, Alvin Davenport, Robert Hill, Raymond Stevens, John Grant, James Reposo, William O'Connell, Ronnie Atkinson, Larry Keener, Herman Smith, Charles Skinner, James Durham, Richard Carr, James Gillum, Samuel Smith Jr., Robert Stone, David Bushy, Michael Cherry, Leroy Muncie, Russell Jensen, Leslie Scott, Adrian Todd, Philip Carver, James Peebles, Lawrence Hendrick, Floyd Smith, Billy Thompson, John Flatt, Richard Ruddy, James Young, Curtis Millway, Nicholas Johnson, Carl Darlington, Charles Shogun, Herman Cox, William Champion, Ronald Jolly, Claude Jelstra, Tony Jansen, Jerry Lashley, it's Tony James, Jerry Lashley, Kenneth Redfern, Johnny Giles, Joe Walker, Harold Bush, Grant Patterson, Thomas Penfold Sr., David Olson, William Work, Martin Nichols, Tommy Hancock, James Nicholas, Jimmy Solomon, James Boatman, Robert Bierry, John White, Lloyd Ramsey, Philip Wayne Crowell, Walker Ward, James Baker Sr., John Robert Doolittle Sr., Robert Sons, David Seward, David Thomas, James Lancaster, Richard Reed, Jerry Pergin, Raymer Patterson, Sammy Baker, Thomas Roberts, Lowell Huddleston, Malcolm Hazlett, William LaCroix. Those are our brothers and sisters, our veterans who have passed since last Veterans Day. We honor and thank God that they are with Him now and are healed. Now, in the shape note style of Odie Lee Tittle, a veteran of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, I will attempt to bring you The Faithful Soldier. Oh, when shall I see Jesus and reign with Him above? And from that fountain flowing, drink everlasting love. When shall I be delivered from this vain world of sin? And with my blessed Savior, drink endless pleasures in. Now I am but a soldier, my captain's gone before. He has given me my orders and bid me ne'er give o'er. His promises are faithful, he'll give. And all his valiant soldiers eternally shall live. Whenever you meet with troubles or trials on your way, just cast your cares on Jesus and don't forget to pray. Gird on the gospel armor of faith and hope and love. And when the combat's ended, he'll take you home above. Thank you.
Scout Caterpillar. Again, I want to thank everyone for attendance today and the tribute that we make to our veterans. Thank you, veterans.